Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we will go over a few details of Dungeons & Dragons. I've played my Dungeons & Dragons campaign a lot on my stream, and I also realized that not everyone might have understood what was happening at the time. Hopefully with this series of videos I'll be able to help new players understand, help people who have never played the game and seek to understand, or even teach some veteran players some new tricks. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and visit me on my Twitch channel linked below. The first big question we will have to answer is, what is Dungeons & Dragons? Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D for short, is a tabletop role-playing game. What does this mean? So imagine playing improvisation while also playing a role-playing video game, while also playing a tabletop game with dice. You have the improvisation of role-playing as a character you and the players at the table create, each with their own unique story you have to build up while also keeping track of your statistic scores, health, and other factors from a role-playing game. The dice are there to help determine if your actions within the game end in failure or in success. You have numerous dice that are used for different interactions in the game. There are a total of 7 dice to play a game. There are 4-sided dice, 6-sided dice, 8-sided dice, 10-sided dice, 12-sided dice, 20-sided dice, and lastly, percentile dice. Just like improvisation, a lot of the game is theater of the mind, meaning having a vivid imagination can help you imagine how the scenes are playing out without props or imagery. Getting comfortable with role-playing your character is entirely up to you on how you want to go about it. Some go all out and roleplay exactly what their characters would say and in which intonation. This, however, can take some practice if you've never practiced your improvisational skills before. If you are new and just want to say, my character bows to the lady and says, my queen, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Which brings us to, how many people can play in a single game of D&D? The recommended amount of people, as per Wizards of the Coast, the company that owns D&D, is 5 to 6 players. 4 to 5 of those players play what are called player characters. And lastly, the last individual of the group is called the Dungeon Master. Each has a purpose, but overall, ultimately, all the players help to contribute to the role-playing story. The major difference being, the player characters create one singular character with a backstory. A backstory is, how did this character come about? Where was he born? What kind of life experience has this character had before the story began with the entire group? The Dungeon Master, or DM for short, on the other hand, controls all the non-playable characters of the story, knows what monsters inhabit which areas of the map, creates quest lines for the playable characters to go through, and reacts to how said players improvise. They create elaborate stories to keep the players engaged, while also having them help create the story as well. In battle, the DM will also control all monsters the party is about to face. The goal of the DM is not necessarily to kill the players, like a lot of the people may think, but to actually create engaging battles while also giving a challenge to the player characters. Sometimes, the luck of the dice does prove to be too powerful, and some playable characters may pass. But that is also the beautiful part of the storytelling. Some heroes can actually choose to end their life to save another. Or some might even die the coward's way out in trying to flee the poorly planned battle. It is all up to the imagination of the group of people at the table to create constructive storyline, and not actually all up to the DM. Albeit, the DM does determine a lot of where the story may or may not go, but usually with some nudge from the players and how they react to the world that was created. To be able to play a playable character, you very much need to create a character. This character creating process can be lengthy if it is your first time. The general steps are, choose a race for your character, a class, a background. These will determine your statistic scores for your character, as well as some lucky dice rolling. Your DM might choose an alternative to you rolling dice to determine your statistic scores. Stats for short. These stats are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. These can be determined with one of 3 ways: rolling dice, choosing the standard array, or use the point buy system. Each system has their pros and cons, but ultimately depends on what the DM wishes to use. Strength determines how strong your character is. Does the action involve feats such as lifting heavy things, climbing, or swinging heavy objects repeatedly? Strength will be your go-to. Dexterity determines how swift and nimble your character is. Does your action actually require you to use balance, aim a bow, throw an object? Acrobatics? Such feats are determined by your dexterity stats. Constitution determines how your character reacts to external factors like poison, extreme weather, and things that would interact with your immune system, and how your character can avoid being inflicted by these things. Intelligence determines your character's memory, puzzle solving, and anything that would relate to feats using your brain instead of your feats of strength. Wisdom determines how good your character is to apply actions and decisions based on their experience, knowledge, and good judgment in certain situations. Lastly, charisma determines how good your character can be in social interactions. Want to smooth talk your way out of a dreadful situation? Want to lie and live another day thanks to this lie? This would be the stat for you. And there are, as the release of this video, 47 different playable races if we go with the DnDBeyond databases for the player characters to choose from. All come with their different abilities, appearances, and different storylines based off of the world your DM has created for you and your group. A DM may actually choose different ruling and limit the types of races you may choose from. Nonetheless, I will leave a link down in the description to showcase these races. Another piece of the puzzle to choose from is your class, which essentially translates the profession of your characters. There are 12 classes to choose from, which have all their different jobs in and out of combat. The classes are Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and lastly, Wizard. The casters tend to have less health points and are easier to hit in combat than their martial class counterparts. Casters are Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. Ranger and Paladin can have some spells, but they do not excel at them. They are the middle ground of martial and caster classes. Martial classes tend to have more HP, they're harder to hit in combat, but also the downfall of not being able to attack multiple enemies in one go. The martial classes are Barbarian, Fighter, Monk, and Rogue. Each class has a different archetype when they reach a certain level, which help to differentiate your character compared to other archetypes of your class. Let's call it a specialization, if you will. With that, this concludes our first video in this series, where we will go over most of the rules of Dungeons & Dragons. This video's purpose was to give a very brief introduction of D&D, while also keeping it light for our new player base. Thank you all for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye bye!